Welcome everyone to our discussion today. We're really excited to have everyone here. This is our sponsoring group is New Beginnings. So we wanted to tell you a little bit about, our group, which we feel is a tremendous team effort to, support everyone going through a divorce. My name is Barbara Shigog. I am a CDFA and a CPA, so I handle some of the financial aspects of it. I work with clients pre-divorce, if you're thinking about going through a divorce and want to see what your options are, during, helping assemble all your financial information, evaluating settlements, telling you what your life, will look like post-settlement, and then working on, helping you, post-settlement, find other investment managers or the professionals that you need to work with. So that's a little bit of myself. Next up, I'll hand it over to Melissa to talk a little bit about North Star's role in New Beginnings.
Thanks, Barb. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you this evening. If you've attended any previous New Beginnings webinars, you may recognize the name Robin Young. She's the president of North Star Financial Planning, and I'm delighted to be stepping in for her tonight. So at North Star, we are a fiduciary wealth management firm dedicated to helping women take control of their financial futures, especially during major life transitions like divorce. And our team supports women through both the divorce process and the post-divorce phase. So we help ensure the legal aspects of divorce are addressed, assist in creating a clear financial plan for the future, and we work to make sure your resources are aligned with your long-term financial goals. So thank you all for having me, and I will pass it over next to Kate.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. This is a really great topic tonight, so I'm glad that you were able to tune in. I am a collaborative divorce attorney in Nashua, and I also do mediation. My focus is really helping families stay out of court and helping you work together to resolve your divorce, your parenting issues, whatever that is. Going through court, pretty much no one wants to do that. And so we're able to help you get that process started outside of court, and hopefully you never even know where the courthouse is. Again, I'm excited to hear from Karen tonight. I work with her a lot in the collaborative setting. She's really experienced and has a lot of good information for you. I will pass it off to Laura.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Laura Gamache Real Estate Group of Keller Williams. I work a lot with divorce situations in regards to anything and everything around the property, the home, which happens to be a lot of people's biggest asset. It can be a very emotional time as well, depending on the situation with the divorce. So a lot of times I'm working with them pretty early on in the stages, especially like Kate might need to know the value if they're negotiating all the numbers, and like Barbara mentioned as well. So I'm coming in and really kind of going through and giving them a market analysis and kind of really just discussing price points, the market, et cetera, and kind of discussing all that timeline, and also just what their next steps might be if someone needs to get housing lined up, if we're selling that home, and then they need to know where they're going to go as well. So working a lot of the times with both of those individuals and trying to get something. It's been a little bit of a challenging market for some buyers. So sometimes we kind of have to get that started first. So just really kind of getting things lined up accordingly, just because it can be very emotional, and just getting what's desired and what's needed and top priority for my clients. So happy that you guys are all here, and also just very excited to have Karen with us. So I'm sure you're going to learn a lot of great information tonight. So next, I'll pass you over to Renee.
Thanks, Laura. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you with us tonight. My name is Renee Guidaboni. I am a residential mortgage lender. I'm also a CDLP, which is a certified divorce lending professional. So I work in the divorce world every day. and here to help you with your numbers and your options as far as your housing goes. I'm excited for tonight's topic. I can't wait to hear Karen speak, and I'm going to pass it off to Barb to introduce our speaker. Thanks.
Thanks. And so I'm really delighted to welcome Karen Kenny to talk to you today. Karen's been a psychotherapist, licensed psychotherapist in private practice since 1982. Her focus is primarily on working with children, adolescents, families, and couples. She's also provided counseling to young adults at St. Anselm's College from 2005 to 2022. So in 2009, Karen was trained to be a coach, facilitator in the collaborative divorce space. And that's how I've met Karen. She's a great collaborative divorce coach. And, she really knows how to keep couples moving forward and is really an asset to the process. So I know you're going to get a lot of great tips, and I'm really excited to have her. So Karen, why don't you take it over?
Thanks, Barbara. Okay, so I also am going to add to that introduction. Can you, because I could keep seeing you, Barbara. Oh, okay. So I'm going to add to that introduction the fact that I also got a divorce myself in the year 2000. So it's been some time. And I've also have been remarried since 2004, and my boys were 16 and 17 when I got divorced, and this was before collaborative. I've also worked with families, kids, a lot of young adults at St. A. So I've seen a lot of consequences of people struggling with a life crisis. Why I said that, it's a life transition, it's a life crisis. Divorce isn't what harms kids. High conflict harms kids. Kids will feel really anxious around high conflict. So the collaborative divorce process is why I got involved in it, is because there had to be a better, saner, more respectful way to help families go through this life crisis so that, one, you will be okay, emotionally, financially. So there's a lot of elements to it, but you need to be okay in order for your children to be okay. Now, a lot of you have maybe in different stages, but you're all here because you have kids. And they may range in age from infant to teenagers, young adults, and don't think that young adults who are over 18 and off to college aren't impacted by this. They absolutely are. I worked 17 years with young adults whose parents were divorcing, and let me tell you, they really struggle with it. So the important thing here, and what I wanted to talk about, is how can you make sure that you provide a place for your children to feel safe, to feel like they can start thriving. Resiliency. So resiliency, what is resiliency? Resiliency is really an important word. Resiliency is ability to adapt to difficult times, whether it's a hurricane, a fire. We go through life crisis, and children are going to look to you as a person that they can count on to help them feel safe and to help guide them out of that place. Now, if you have a co-parenting ex or about to be ex that is, I say high conflict. High conflict usually means, the buzzword these days, narcissistic, or maybe they're mentally ill, or maybe there's other issues. They're struggling with mental illness, or they're, not even that involved or caring with the children. There's a lot of co-parents that aren't going to be co-parenting well with you. My audience, I'm assuming, are all mothers. But your ex is important. You have to remember that all kids really do love that other parent that you no longer really want to be with, or feel so relieved that you're getting a divorce, or have so many mixed feelings about that it's hard for you to see that. I'll give you an example. Someone who their young teenage daughter is complaining, oh, mom is blah, 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 blah. She's so crazy. And the father rolls his eyes and says, yeah, I know what you're talking about. That is not helpful. If a child comes to you and tells you something about the other parent, and it hits you right where, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh yeah, your father, your other mother, yeah, what a jerk. Oh, I totally get it. You have just made it about you. You are not helping your child develop resiliency and learning how to set boundaries. You're not role modeling as well. I tell parents who do that, and it is more the narcissistically driven parents who will do this, that they put down the other parent. And I say, you know what? You're shooting yourself in the foot. And the reason you're shooting yourself in the foot is you're forgetting something really basic. The fact is, your child loves that other parent. Okay? Now, the other parent is imperfect. I have to make a note that if we're talking about abuse, that's a whole nother category. But I had a mother who had gone through divorce. She had 4-year-old and 6-year-old. So she was concerned that the father, who was high conflict, very narcissistic, was not able to take good care of them. There's different rules in different houses. There's a book called Mom's House, Dad's House. I'm often telling co-parents that I'm counseling that yes, there is different ways, there's different structures, there's different rules. One house, yeah, they're always on the TV, or they're Wi-Fi. The other has certain rules. And guess what? I'm here to tell you that kids are adaptable. They will figure out different rules in different places. Like, they know there's different rules at school. They know there's different rules at the boys club and girls club when they go for their after school program. They know there's different rules. Okay. So you need to stay firm. But what if you're concerned that there's actually abuse? Well, again, it's totally different. But like I told this mother, then look for bruises, listen carefully. But for the most part, your kids have the other parent that they've got, and you can't make that parent perfect for your child, no matter how much that is in your heart to wish for that child. Now, how can you help provide that safe oasis for your children to feel that they can open up, talk to you, feel safe, feel it's okay to talk about their lives? First of all, you need to take care of yourself. The metaphor about the analogy of who gets the oxygen when the oxygen mask comes down in the airplane, you or the 10-year-old sitting beside you? You, because you need to be okay. in order to help your children be okay. Again, if it's about abuse, you just have to document, and then you have to, go to the doctor, ask the pediatrician but for the most part, kids will just be complaining because they don't like, oh, dad yelled too much. So what do? Do you validate by saying, oh yeah, I know, that's exactly why I got divorced from him? No, remember what I said, you've got to be respectful that they love their other parent. What you do is you hear it. It's called active listening. So active listening is that you hear them. Wow, that I hear you. You don't like it when dad yells at you, and that you really listen, and you stay calm, you stay focused on what they're saying to you. If you are triggered, your child's going to stop talking. Case in point, a mother whose 6-year-old daughter came and said to her, oh, we did this with daddy over the weekend. And she said, and his girlfriend, and she said her name. And the mother burst out crying because it's complicated, but it used to be her ex-girlfriend as well. And, they used to be friends, and then an affair, and then a divorce. But her daughter had fun that weekend. What do you think happens when you fall apart, either with anger, upset, disgust, crying? Your child will say to themselves internally, uh-oh, I shouldn't have said anything. Oh, I better not say anything. Mom gets upset about it. Mom is, and the child will stop talking to you. And that is not what you want them to do. You want them to feel safe, and that you are a person that they can come to when they're feeling trouble. Wait till they hit adolescence. You have to establish that you are there for them, so that they can feel they can use you as a wise advisor. But you have to be calm. You have to be collected. You can't make it about you. So then the teenager who's struggling and doesn't come to you as much, I always say to parents of teenagers, when your teenager wants to come and talk to you, you stop, drop, and listen. Okay. And you have to develop all of that skills, that routine, that ability, that you were there as a safe sounding board. Can you give them some advice? Sure. And the advice that you would be giving them would be around, what can they do about their feelings? Think about your child comes home and they're upset about a bully at school. They're upset about their friend who's mad at them and they don't know why. Okay. You're not feeling personally affected by this, other than that you feel sad or bad for your child. And so you could keep your calm, you could keep your wits about you. You aren't going to minimize it, because remember, you're doing active listening. You're not going to minimize and say, oh, you got other friends, don't worry about it, because your child, then they really need you as a sounding board. And then you're probably going to say, well, what if you said to your friend, and you give some suggestions? You can actually do the same thing with a child. So I go back to, daddy was yelling at me. He was really yelling at me, and I felt scared. Now the mother wanted to call him or blast him, and you can't do that. But there was a high conflict problem with their co-parenting, and she knew it would go nowhere. So I suggested to her, using 4-year-old language, say, what if you tell daddy that you felt scared? It's okay to tell daddy that you don't like his yelling. I've worked with young children, and and even early adolescents, when I have given them phrases to use, it's all about I statements. Well, I really don't, case in point, an 11-year-old who was saying, my mom is dating a whole lot of people, and men, and she wants to bring someone, I don't even know him, on our vacation. And I said to her, well, what if you end up saying to your mom, I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't know who he is. I don't feel comfortable with that. She used the exact phrase that I gave her. And it turned out, she reports to me that her mother said, oh, why don't you like him? And she said, I don't really know him. I just don't feel comfortable. I had taught her to stay with her feelings and use I statements. You can do that as well. And guess what? Her mother didn't bring the man to the vacation. Sometimes a narcissistic ex is really not getting it. So it helps that if you get it, that you listen to your child. All the child really needs is one parent who really, really gets it. Okay. But they love that other parent. I have to keep telling you that they do. So you have to be careful about not thinking you have to rescue them or have them feel the same way you feel. You've got to check those feelings. And if you need to go into some therapy to help guide you with that, but I am going to give you some other really good tips and hints about how to stop feeling engaged or feeling exhausted by the energy of trying to take the high road, trying to do good parenting and having it get really, really messy. There are some practical strategies that I'm going to give you. Okay. All right. So, and by the way, people can put questions, and if I see them, I will perhaps pause, or closer to the end, I will look at those questions and perhaps answer them, because I'm trying to generalize it, because I don't see you all. I don't know exactly what's going on for you. So I'm just trying to give you some good generalities around how to deal with a high conflict co-parent. So first of all, I've already talked about developing the resiliency in yourself, establishing your own boundaries with that high conflict ex. Never put kids in the middle. Always respect that the children also love that other imperfect parent. And as I often say to couples when they're talking to their children about getting a divorce, and couples really do like this, I say, tell your children that you're no longer going to be husband and wife, but you will always be mom and dad. So you do the best that you can do because you have these children together, and you may not be able to effectively do cooperative co-parenting. And so you have to learn some skills. So let's get to some of those skills. Some of the strategies. These strategies have really worked well. Okay, first of all, with a high conflict personality, I'll give you an example. A mother who said she was with the kids, and she was at Starbucks, and she was in line, and she was talking to someone ahead of her in line, and it happened to be a guy, and she had her kids there. And the next thing she knows, she's getting a text from her ex, a very typical text, which is, wow, who is that you were talking to at Starbucks? And don't you think you should be paying more attention to your children? What she had been doing every time he sent these kinds of texts, she felt she had to answer them with defensiveness. There wasn't anyone that I knew. It was just, I was being friendly. I was there with the kids. I knew she was constantly being engaged by someone who was making her not feel good about herself. I mean, it's one reason they got divorced. Okay. Sometimes these people, especially if you instigated the divorce, they don't really like that they lost control over you. And so they may try to use the needs of the children to engage you in a defensive manner or criticize you. So one of the things that I say very quickly to people when I'm working with them on this is I say, first of all, no defensiveness. No defensiveness. You don't have to respond to that. One person told me recently, gray rock. I've learned how to be a gray rock. Gray rock is a term for becoming uninteresting to this other person. See, if they could keep you engaged, if they could keep you responding to them, they can keep some amount of control. We've heard a lot about narcissism, high conflict co-parent can be very narcissistic, but if they keep somehow turning you into being defensive, feeling exhausted, feeling like they're always playing games, you need to sort of back up. I often say, don't jump into the ring. If they throw down the end of the tug of war rope, you do not have to pick up the other end. Try to keep it based on practicalities. It's something that we would call moving into the direction of parallel parenting. In other words, you're doing your parenting, your co-parent's doing her parenting, and you're making sure that you're informing each other, working on major decisions, but you no longer have to be engaged in the emotional issues that have occurred in your marriage. So one way to do this is get into written communication. Start moving it into written communication, because you could get caught. It can start going south. I thought we were going to talk about something and then it goes somewhere else. You've got to set up boundaries. By the way, this is good role modeling ultimately for your children, because you will start getting calmer when you set up boundaries. You don't have to say, oh, I've set up boundaries with your father, but you show that you become able to be disengaged with people who are going to rattle your cage. You will become calmer. So another way is BIF. Okay, BIF stands for, I don't know if anyone write this down, but BIF is what you use in communication through emails. Emails are better than text. Texts are okay for, all right, I'm picking up our child at 5 o'clock, or, oh, very brief. So BIF stands for brief, informative, friendly, which is respectful, firm. What you want to do is not answer anything that's provocative, that pulls you, that no defensiveness, just brief, informative, friendly, firm. Friendly is, you can end it with have a good day. You don't want sarcasm. You don't want anger. You don't want any defensiveness. You just want to stick to the facts, and you want to be polite, and you want to be respectful. You want to be detached from the emotions they're trying to provoke in you, oftentimes because that's the way they stay connected. Gray rocking is a term that is around becoming uninteresting, like a gray rock. You become uninteresting. They can't get a rise out of you. They can't make you feel terrible about yourself. And how does this relate to your children's resiliency? Because you will get calmer when you start figuring this out. So I told you about the woman who came to see me, one of my more recent cases, where she had the 6-year-old, 4-year-old. She was smart. She was a nurse. She was getting an advanced degree. She had grown up with a father who was very narcissistic, and her mother had stayed with him. But she had a mother who was very caring, also a nurse. So my client had a very caring nature about her. And who did she gravitate towards? Someone who ended up being very controlling and domineering, and she was always being defensive and explain. That was the Starbucks story. I taught her this about Biff, no defensiveness, don't respond to anything. You don't have to respond. You don't have to respond to your, parenting style. And it worked. It worked like a charm. All of a sudden she started getting calmer and more focused on herself. And when the kids were there, she also made sure that they were safe. They don't have cell phones. Over 10, most kids start getting cell phones. So if a parent leaves them at the curbside and then not picking them up, they might contact you and stay on the phone with you, and you can perhaps make a contact with the ex saying, just verifying, are you picking up? Again, just gray rock, brief, informative, friendly, firm. Okay. The other, I want to put this out. Before I do that, some resources. Let me see if I have a. Yep. Okay, so I have a question here, and this is exactly stopped at just the right place. What do you do when your kids call you because they fought with the other parent and they are so upset? They want you to come and pick them up. Wow, good question. First of all, you don't want to, and Kate will also answer this as well, but I want to say, you don't want to jump to picking them up. You want to hear them, and you want to say, well, why don't you talk to your dad about that? Why don't you, or the other parent, why don't you use your voice, use your words, try to guide them. You want to make sure they're safe, but a fight is a fight. You've got to be careful that kids, especially teenagers, don't start splitting. Splitting is something pretty unhealthy. I remember a divorce situation where I was working with a teenage daughter and she was splitting left and right. She'd tell the father awful things about the mother, tell the mother awful things about the father. They were both. So here's what I did, because I knew she was splitting, and I had both the parents come in together. And they were a little uncomfortable, but I said, listen, we need to do this. And with her in the room, because she was a teenager, she was old enough to be responsible for some of these behaviors. And I let her know I was going to do that. And I addressed that issue. So you want to be careful that you don't just jump and show up, and, you want to assess, are they unsafe? And if they're not unsafe, just try not to spend an over amount of time with that. I think, Kate, you have something to say. Maybe there's a lawyer's perspective on this too.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. I was dying to hear your answer because, of course, I could tell you the legal answer if
Right.
you go pick them up. It could potentially be contempt of your court order. So there's legal ramifications, right, for doing it. But like Karen said, like sometimes there's safety issues and you don't really have a choice. You've got to go. But yeah, I've seen it where judges have held one parent in contempt for going to get them. So it's not a good position to be in.
No, it isn't. And the other thing I would say is I have these questions sometimes around, okay, so we go to a neutral place, because high conflict parents sometimes have to go to a neutral place, the post office in town, or I hate to do the police station because that's really high conflict. But sometimes the kids will cry, I don't want to get out of the car, I don't want to. And again, Kate and I are the same. Yeah, you got to be careful about that. Well, I usually see that the moms in those situations have almost sort of fed into some of that anxiousness, and is almost validated to the point that the splitting does start happening. Yes, we want your children to be safe, but guess what? Life throws us difficult things we need to deal with. Sometimes I worked with a lot of students at St. A's who didn't like their roommates and they hated their roommates or they didn't like, and they had to work on having enough resiliency to set some boundaries, to handle their upset emotions. So again, I go back to what I said in the beginning. You handling your own emotions about this person and not letting that seep into your kids seeing that will help them learn how to be calmer themselves. You can be a role model. Okay, so if there's other questions, just pop them in. That was really good question. Okay, so this book, okay. I don't know. Okay, there it is. This book, Breaking Free from Narcissistic Co-Parent. It's a wonderful book, and it's written by Michael Marino. And I gave it to that young woman, plus the tips and hints that I get. He doesn't mention Biff. I talk about Biff. That's in the high conflict world. It's another book. Any case, she read this from front to back and just it reinforced all the things that I was saying. It was really, I always like the books that reinforce what I'm saying. Anyways, this is a really helpful book. The other thing, I mentioned something about high conflict that really gets, like, it's so high conflict that you can't even have reasonable conversations, that I mean, it's sad, but you're on opposite sides of the soccer field because your co-parent can't either tolerate being with you, or you can't tolerate it, or you start, remember, try not to ever get provoked. Sometimes I tell people, try to be Mr. Spockish, try to just suit a gray rock, just offer nothing of yourself personally. And that means that you have to really check all of those emotions and tuck them away, maybe work them out in therapy if they're really strong, especially, I mean, you can feel really victimized and feel really emotional, and it may take time to heal. I often say that the healing really starts post-divorce, when you finalize the divorce. I mentioned that I got a divorce in 2000, and I did go to therapy. I follow my own advice. And I remember a crucial moment was when I stopped complaining about what I had put up with. And everyone was like, oh, wow, that's terrible. And oh, yeah, it's really great that oh, yeah. And then I said to myself, and I said out loud in therapy, wait, why did I put up with that? So I started from that point on, I started to reclaim myself, reclaim understanding about what I needed to do differently. And that really helps when your children are still seeing you. You're still their mom. You're there, and they see you grow, and they see you, standing up for yourself in a calm way. I don't mean with their other parent. I mean, like, you don't like something that's happening at work, or you decide to get a different job because you're not being treated well. These are messages that they learn by watching you, being a good role model. So if you go on I remember I had to do a parent reunification situation, and the father would go to the soccer field, but he would sort of chase the mother around the field because he was so upset, and the kids suffered tremendously. And he didn't know how to check his emotions at the door, and she didn't know how to feel safe. So first you have to figure out how to help yourself calm down from whatever it was that got you to a place of feeling you needed a divorce, or or you got a divorce that you didn't want and you're struggling with that loss, you've got to handle your own feelings. Think about the house is burnt down, you live in California, and you're devastated. But you look at it and then you look at your children, and you need to be calm and collected and strong so that they can feel safe. It's the job we parents have to do. And so some of it is developing your own resiliency, not feeling like a victim, saying, what can I do to take care of myself? Okay. And okay, so there's that book. Let me see. There's another question. Okay, let me see. There's another question. I've been doing drop off and pickup every other week for 3 years. It is still hard for me missing him. I do keep myself busy and I'm in counseling. Does it get better? Do parents talk with their kids daily while the child is with the other parent? Oh, they're all good questions. Okay. If you are still, because that's what I just said as you were probably writing it, is it may be the divorce you didn't want and you're still grieving, you're still missing, it's still hard for you. You've got to check those feelings at the door for your kids, because your kids will not talk to you about if they had fun over the weekend, because they know that, remember the story of the mother who she burst out in tears when her 6-year-old daughter was saying how they had fun. And all the 6-year-old's going to do is, ooh, I better not say anything about that anymore. Now you don't have a window into what's going on with your kids. You want them to be happy. You want them to be okay. So what is helpful for them to be happy and be okay is for you, dear audience member, to be happy and okay. And that means doing some good work about grieving and coming to acceptance. Oh yeah, I did write down. You have to accept your reality. And in doing that, like if the house is burnt down, you can't just keep, I know it's awful, but when your kids are concerned, you want to be able to show them your strengths. So build those strengths, build your own resiliency. As far as do parents talk with their kids daily, the child was with the other parent. I've done a lot of parenting plans. The younger the child is, we have more, communication. The older the child is, there is less of a need. It's usually should be driven by what the child wants to do. Under 10, they usually don't have cell phones. And so is it the other parent's need to talk to the child, or is it the child's need? And it should be the child's need. And I have some parents who've been very intrusive. In the parenting plan, it does say something about during reasonable times, and what's reasonable, there have been some parents who have co-opted their younger adolescents, over 10, but younger adolescents, to really have conversations with them all the time. And that's, if you find out about that, you might want to talk to your child. You might want to establish rules in the house that during dinner time, here's the basket, all the phones go in it. In any case, it depends on the age, and it depends on whose need is it. And it depends on whether it's a parenting plan with extended period of times away, like a 5-2-2-5 plan, which is 5 days and then 2 days at the other 2 days, and then the other parent has 5 days. Well, it's a little bit more extended time. Anyways, there's no hard and fast answer on that. And I think I answered that. Yep. Okay. All right. So I think you've heard over and over from me that what's really important to develop resiliency in your children going through a life crisis, because that's what this is. It's a life crisis. They are looking at you, and or other parent, admittedly, but all they need is one really strong, emotionally healthy parent. Okay. Because frankly, what if a child has a parent who develops cancer and dies? I mean, that's a life crisis. Okay. So what's really important is for you to take care of yourself so you can be there for what your children need and that they can feel safe and it's a safe oasis. And you be careful about your own feelings contributing to them not feeling that way. There's also another resource that's really good for information, but also practical, is a place, let me see if I can put this up there. Okay, Our Family Wizard. If you go on to ourfamilywizard.com, a lot of courts will use this. I have recommended it. This is really helpful for the high conflict parenting. They use BIF. Okay, first of all, it's a calendar. It is like $99 a year. Both parents have access. So you do all your communication through it. There are judges who will say, yeah, you are going to use this and I can have access to your communication and I will be checking on your communication. It keeps people respectful. Okay. Whereas text, I find that a parent can really digress into being mean, nasty, provoking, not necessary. Stop being emotionally exhausted from that. So Our Family Wizard has, you can even do your emails through it. And they have a little thing of a tone meter. So if they feel that your ex the other parent has written something pretty provocative, kind of nasty, calling an account, what kind of mother are you, or whatever, it will stop that email and say to the person who wrote it, are you sure you want to send this email? You use some language that is not. Okay. So you can also go ahead. Kate, you want to say something?
I do, because I am like you. I love Our Family Wizard. I am a huge proponent. There's a feature that lets your lawyer log in
Yes.
and see what is happening. See, I have one client that the spouse is constantly like just bombarding them with emails. And so I log in as the attorney to see, is there anything really that this person needs to respond to? So it's amazing. I can go in and print things out for court if needed. Yeah, I can't say enough
Yeah.
good things about it.
Yeah,
So
good. And also, if you go on it and you just look through it, if you go to parallel parenting, because it takes two to really be in a high conflict relationship. It takes two to work on a marriage. And I do a lot of couples counseling, and I always say it takes two to work on a marriage, but it only takes one to unilaterally say they don't want to be in the marriage anymore. Well, the same thing holds true for high conflict, that it really does take two. You don't have to pick up the other end of the rope. Okay. So I have taught a lot of people how to do this concept. It's called parallel parenting. And I was looking on Our Family Wizard today, .com, and there's a whole section they write about parallel parenting. So check that out. All right. So, oh, and I wrote a big note card for myself. Never put kids in the middle. And by that, what I mean is if you feel like you don't want to deal with your ex, you should not be handing your child a note in a sealed envelope, give this to your other parent. You should not be, support checks should not be going back and forth. There should not be, you don't want to put your child in the middle. What you want is your child to have the resiliency to learn how to be happy, safe, okay in both homes. And both homes are going to be different. They are going to be different. it's really, really lovely when I have had at St. A's, I've worked with over 1,000 students, and I've worked with a lot who have had parents who have been divorced. And I'll tell you, I've seen the more anxious ones who will say that their parents just fight about everything, even 10 years post-divorce. And I'm working with a young woman who's 28, and parental alienation happened and her mother is still trying to get her, she has reunified with her father and loves him and realizes that a lot of what her mother did was parental alienation, and she had good counseling in college. So, but now she's getting married, and guess what? The mother is ratcheting up all of the stuff to make her hate her father, not invite the father, and the mother's making it about her. She's crying all the time. She's making it about her. She even told her daughter, you know, he raped me, which had never ever been said. And fortunately, this young woman has had some good therapy, but now because she's getting married, and so what I'm helping her with is now she's having to really be very clear about setting boundaries. But she is, and that's what you have to do, is you yourself have to set up healthy boundaries if you have someone who is going over those boundaries and making you feel terrible about yourself. I think I have a few more
I was
questions.
just going to tell you, obviously you've struck a nerve here because we've had a ton of questions come up. So,
Okay, so let me see if I can get to. Okay. My ex has made it clear that he does not want to do any family holidays, birthdays, or events together, separate. I have invited him for the kids, but he has refused, which is okay because it's totally his choice. Good. But based on the fact that he seems to not want to interact with me, is it okay not to sit near him during events or soccer games? Yeah. Okay, first of all, all these questions are great. Let me say to you that I have a saying when families are getting divorced and they ask me, well, we were going to go to Disney World for spring vacation, and is that okay to still do even though we're going through a divorce? I said, okay, if you get separate rooms, and but let me tell you this is the phrase I use. If it's a duck, it needs to walk like a duck, quack like a duck, act like a duck. I had a 14-year-old girl who said to me, you know, my father comes over for Christmas Eve and he stays on the couch and he's all, and the reason she was in therapy is she was so confused because her parents were friendly, but they were more than friendly. And she couldn't understand why he was always there on holidays. And she said, are they going to get remarried, or are they going to? And I finally had to work with the parents about that. Now, it sounds like the other parent in that question I was just asked has said no to the holidays. And just be benign about that. That was kind of you, nice of you. But in some ways, I have to say, I support there are separate holidays. A lot of kids will say, I get 2 Christmases. You know, so they learn to adapt. All right. But holidays are special times. And so maybe that is what your ex is doing. But based on that, and I'm glad you said it's totally his choice, and it sounds like you're being really kind about that, but it does confuse kids, especially because of the holidays, and it's awkward. However, soccer games, I want to make it a point of not sitting with your ex at soccer games, but I'd probably be, you know, is he or she wanting to, you know, interact with you? I mean, there's graduations, there's my ex, my current husband's ex, we have been to events like weddings, and we're always friendly, we're respectful, and you know what, the kids benefit from that. So you're just going to have to feel that out, but I think that the holiday makes sense. Okay, my child always comes home talking negative about the conflicts from the past between my ex and I. Oh, good question. Often telling me how much his dad hates me and how stupid I am, etc. He is being exposed to details that are not appropriate at all. Should I put him in counseling? Record what he is telling me for court, 7-year-old child. Wow. Okay. That is really sad. And that is really hard. If you're currently in divorce, which means that you have some active court hearings coming up, I'd be probably talking to your attorney, right, Kate? And, documenting some of that. But the courts my experience with the courts is this rather loath to really jump into parental alienation stuff, et cetera. The reassurance I would tell you, and I have worked with lots of parents who have gone through this, including the father of that young woman who is now getting married when his daughter was only like 14, is that if you lead with calmness and love and don't get provoked to defend yourself even with your 7-year-old child, or say, or have retaliation, or that's too much information for the 7-year-old. But guess what the father is saying, or, that your ex is saying, is that is too much information. And guess what? And I say this over and over and over. And parents, I've said this to me, tell me that it always works out the way I say, which is the parent who puts down the other parent is shooting themselves in the foot, because the child will feel uncomfortable. Now, what your child is doing, because he's only 7, he or she is only, him is only 7, he's coming to you and opening up about, wow, you want to be cool, calm, and collected. You don't want to get upset yourself. You want to handle it like a trooper. Keep my, he's shooting himself in the foot. Because your son is 7, he wants to feel that you can handle this. If you start to get upset about it, he's going to go, I shouldn't say anything about it. Now, as far as counseling, you know what? A 7-year-old can be looked at. I've worked with 7-year-olds. We do play therapy. We try to help guide them with helping them with their words. We would end up talking with you privately. We would talk with the dad privately. But a lot of our major goal with a 7-year-old is to get to know the 7-year-old well enough to do some assessment and then work with the family. It's a lot of work, okay? But your ex would have to know that you were wanting your 7-year-old in counseling. But if you are still in the court, ask your attorney. Okay. Oh, please show the books again. Okay. So here is, okay. There we go. Okay. Breaking Free from Narcissistic Co-Parenting. And I don't know if you can see Michael Marino. Okay. And then this was a brochure, but ourfamilywizards.com has a lot of great information that you can peruse. The other book is, but this is really, how can I do this? Okay. Okay, this is called Biff. Now this is, okay, this is good for even in the workplace, how to deal with people in the workplace and it's all about writing. Okay, it is the safest way to disengage is often to start putting everything in writing, and there'll be resistance to that in writing, your communication in writing. All right, let me see if they're got anything. Okay. All right. It's 6:02. Okay. So I hope that I have helped you understand that it's going to start with you in providing your own resiliency to then provide resiliency, role modeling, safe oasis, calmness, so your children can benefit from that. And some tips and hints to help you figure out how to disengage from what's provoking you so that you can be there for your children. And by the way, you're not perfect. You're the mother who cried. She apologized to her daughter and hugged her daughter and said, "I know, it's okay. You had fun this weekend." So she fixed it because the daughter started crying because she upset her mother. Okay, so remember, they're really attuned to you. All right.
Thank you so much, Karen. Some great questions. Thank you for running over a little bit with trying to get them all answered. So we really appreciate it. Everyone will be receiving a recording of the, so if you missed anything or want to go back to something, certainly that will be available. So we have our monthly webinars. We're always looking for good feedback on, topics you want to hear about. If there's anything that we can add to the lineup. I pity next month's webinar host because they have to follow Karen because she did such a great job. So,
Thank you.
and clearly it's especially when you started talking about, just the whole, bad mouthing and things like that and how dealing with that. It certainly spiked a lot of questions. So that must be, a hot point. So,
Yeah.
again, thank you everyone for attending and thanks Karen for, speaking to us all tonight.
Take good care of yourselves.
Yes,
Number
I
one.
yes, I wrote that down in big letters as advice to give people.
Give yourself oxygen.
Yes.
Okay. Take
Thanks,
good
Karen.
care.
I love it.
So I'm leaving.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Karen.
Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Take care. Bye.